Before I get to my actual text of what I want to say, I just wanted to make a comment. There's a lot of statements and assessments made about what used to be called the deal of the century, and now has a different name, but the President Trump's peace plan. And sometimes I even check these things. Now, this is an American plan. You have to remember that the whole time. It's not an Israeli plan, it's an American plan. And some of us followed it extremely closely for a variety of reasons. But I start with an assumption, looking at this plan and looking at the whole history of U.S. policy in the Middle East, that basically all the previous plans that were put on the table didn't work. If they did work, we'd be having peace right now. But they didn't work, and people actually forget that. There is a mythology that has persisted for many years about peace plans, assigning them far more effectiveness and utility than they ultimately demonstrated. Just one or two examples. We have with us Yoni Ben Menachem. And back during the Taba negotiations, you remember those, the Taba negotiations after Camp David? I was in my car going from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, and I hear the voice of Yoni Ben Menachem on the radio. Yoni was the Arab affairs correspondent of Kol Israel. And we had just heard on the radio the foreign minister of Israel, Shlomo Ben-Ami, making a statement which was very typical for the period. He said, "We have never been so close at reaching an agreement. Never, ever so close." And you could have heard this from a dozen different speakers. But he said it, and it was during the Taba negotiations. So Yoni, and I just asked him about it, Yoni was sitting next to Mohammed Dahlan. And he asked Dahlan, he said, "Mr. Dahlan, is it true what the foreign minister of Israel said, that you've never been so close to a breakthrough?" And Dahlan used a term that Israelis understand. He said, "Xarta Barta," which basically I don't feel comfortable translating it properly, but it basically means bull. And there's this gap between what people thought about the peace process, how working, not working, and what was being stated in the public domain. One other example about things working and not working. What was the last major effort to come up with a peace initiative prior to the Trump plan? And what happened in the Kerry plan? And we actually have Kerry's memoirs. And what you find is something that was well known in the month of March of 2014. Secretary Kerry accompanied Mahmoud Abbas into the Oval Office. And Kerry had been working for the previous year tirelessly on a peace plan. And they were going to now present the peace plan. They had actually done it the night before. And the hope for the peace team at the time was that Mahmoud Abbas would accept the plan. And what happened was rather edifying in terms of how negotiations work or don't work. Here you have Mahmoud Abbas sitting in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and Abbas is asked, "Do you accept the plan?" Now, there were rules of how those peace negotiations worked. You could actually accept a plan and say, yes, but I have reservations about clauses 3, 7, and 11. That was actually rather creative. It got people to accept, to buy in, but leave them a little wiggle room to express their differences. So again, Abbas was asked, do you accept the plan that you worked on with Secretary Kerry? And the basic answer that Abbas gave was, I'll get back to you. And you know what happened? He never did. He never got back to him. So what lessons are supposed to be drawn from an experience of that sort? I think it's pretty clear that we did not have a working peace process with the Palestinians that was on the verge of success. We didn't discover what was the key to making this whole thing work. And it just defied the efforts of the most hardworking diplomats. And therefore, something new was needed. Something different was needed. And that brings us to the Trump plan, which the ambassador will speak about in a few minutes. But you can't understand the significance of the Trump plan unless you understand the failures of the past. And there are a whole bunch of others that make good stories.